You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. And yes, my voice has mostly returned. It may kick out on me sometimes. You might hear a little gurgle or a sort of gulp sound. It's not totally back yet, but the laryngitis is mostly gone and the bronchial whatever it was, and it's a great relief not to have to sleep sitting up, if you know what I mean. So, we have a terrific show to celebrate this week. The conversation is with a young Finnish journalist who has showed a number of different kinds of courage, including when the United States dumped on her, she fought back. And, of course, there's Surrealism Corner, and there's a kind of interesting, well, sort of, you could say, fighting words. And before any of that, we have to get started by going inside the headlines. Men, particularly male politicians, can be quite strange. Apparently, all this time, Bernie didn't want the press and public to know he was a millionaire, while Trump doesn't want the press and public to know he isn't. Well, very confusing. Most of us, of course, don't have this problem of secrecy about what millions are or are not there. We just, pay our taxes and hope for the best. But in fairness to Trump, he was very busy these past weeks, purging the Department of Homeland Security of anyone competent or even incompetent, just no one there, announcing to the world that nobody should come to the USA because, quote, our country is full, parading the intensifying dementia that he has more definitively and defiantly in speech after speech, and campaigning for Benjamin Netanyahu, while informing American Jews that Bibi really was their prime minister, and also instructing his White House to insult and defy Congress on every front, no matter how basically illegal that front is. Don't respond to invitations to testify before committees. Don't supply required by law tax information. Don't hand over the required by law special counsel report. Don't even respond to committee chair letters. Oh yeah, also the Trump regime is asking for up to 2 years more to locate what could be thousands of children separated from their families at the border. The Injustice Department claimed it would take at least a year to review some 47,000 cases of unaccompanied children who have been seized into government custody in 2017 and 2018. Just think how angry those children are going to be at the United States in 10 years. The sheer accumulation of this, day after week after month, ramping up as Trump feels truth closing in on him, well, it sends me back to step one. What will it take? When will enough be enough? Is there one Republican in power with a conscience to say enough? Stop. Makes one a little nervous about Congress going on recess for 2 weeks and leaving him in Washington, although, wait a minute, I'm counting on his love of self-indulgence and golf to win out over any attempted coup in Congress's absence. As for Bernie being a millionaire, come on, didn't we always know that? There was some college real estate scandal with his wife, but somehow that vanished in the media, unlike and unpursued as the Clintons whitewatered to do way back in time. As for Bernie saying, quote, I wrote a book. You write a book, you get $1 million, close quote. Personally, as the author of 20-some-odd books, I would really like to know how he does that, because I haven't been able to work that out yet. But maybe those big bucks are only for books written by people who aren't writers. Oh, and back to Netanyahu for a moment, just as an aside, emboldened by Trump's having moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and all of Trump's backing, and Trump having awarded Israel the Golan Heights, just like that, well, now Netanyahu plans, it is said, he said in his campaign, to extend sovereignty over the West Bank. The exact 3 steps that sane people in the region and the world have been trying to avoid for almost 5 decades. Jerusalem, Golan, West Bank. These 3 steps are so provocative that if they come to pass or are even seriously attempted beyond the damage that's already been done, we will see conflagration, violence, and agony in the Middle East greater than any we've witnessed yet. So thanks again, Donald and Bibi. In the U.S., authorities are warning of a public health emergency regarding measles. Certain communities, religious fundamentalist communities like the extreme Orthodox Hasidic areas of Brooklyn, New York, these are areas where people resist anti-disease inoculations. I don't know, there's some kind of sorcery to them. In those communities, there has been a considerable uptick in outbreaks of measles, which can, let's remember, be deadly. I might have mentioned that I used to wonder how the Dark Ages could come about, going backward in time after Roman aqueducts and roads had already been devised and the Greeks were onto astronomy and the ancient Egyptians were doing a form of brain surgery. Well, turning back the clock on knowledge today answers that naive question of mine. Okay, some good news. We have got to have some good news. And there actually is some. New York's First Lady, Chirlane McCray, a sister of mine from way back when we were young street-fighting feminists, she and former Deputy Mayor Alicia Glenn announced that the city's boroughs will soon be home to 4 new statues honoring influential women. The magnificent jazz singer Billie Holiday, Elizabeth Jennings Graham, who was a school teacher who refused to get off a streetcar that had banned African Americans in the 1850s, Dr. Helen Rodriguez Trias, a pediatrician who advocated for children, mothers, and HIV-positive patients, and Catherine Walker, a lighthouse keeper who helped save the lives of those at sea. This is an accomplishment of Women.nyc, which is a women-empowered initiative seeking to address unequal gender representation in public spaces through the project She Built NYC, which seeks to commemorate historical women across the 5 boroughs. In another great city, and making national news as well, Lori Lightfoot, what a great name, became the first black woman to lead Chicago and the city's first openly lesbian mayor. A former prosecutor, she swept to victory with little political experience, but a very broad mandate for change, and she faces decades-long struggles with crime, segregation, policing, and fiscal meltdowns and corruption. But it seems to me if anybody can do it, someone named Lori Lightfoot, which sounds like a superhero, really ought to be able to pull it off. More good news. Julian Assange is finally in custody. And I do hope that whatever charges he faces in Britain or the U.S., that Sweden will revive the double rape charges that they dropped when they couldn't get at him when he was hiding for 7 years in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. Internationally, some greatly heartening news. The temporary release from prison nearly a year after they and other women's rights activists were detained by security forces of the kingdom's de facto ruler, young Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the murderer of journalists. 3 women, they are women's rights activists, Aziza al-Youssef, a former professor and grandmother, Eman al-Nafjan, a linguistics professor and mother of 4 children, and Rokhaya al-Muharrab were granted release after bail hearings, but it's temporary release. The official Saudi press agency, however, made it clear that their cases are ongoing. At least 10 women's rights defenders remain in prison, including Lujain al-Hathlul, Samar Badawi, and Nassim al-Sada. Most of the women appeared to submit their defense, and there, in the presence of their families, who they were finally permitted to see, told the panel of 3 judges about physical and sexual torture and abuse that they had endured. The government denies such charges as, quote, wild claims that are simply wrong, close quote. They testified that they had been caned on their backs and their thighs, electrocuted with shocks, and waterboarded by masked men who refused to identify themselves. One woman said that several drunk men appeared late at night and took her from her place of detention in Jeddah to a nearby secret location where the women were tortured. Some also said they were forcibly assaulted and made to break their fast during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, that is, made to commit a sin. One of the women had attempted suicide. Journalists were not allowed to sit in on the hearings, of course, that's nothing new in the kingdom, but we're glad for even a temporary release of this horror, and we will continue pressuring publicly and privately for the full release of all such prisoners and for justice for Saudi women. And last, this week's major headline, the one that will go down in the history of humanity, the first sight of a black hole. But that will wait to be specially featured in the Surrealism Corner, coming up soon. It's time for our first break, but there's a lot coming up. From a really awesome Surrealism Corner this week, through a really awesome guest for the conversation, a woman of courage, straight through to an unusual, during April, set of fighting words. And right after the break, when we come back, there's the Surrealism Corner. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back, and welcome right into the Surrealism Corner. We have 3 levels of surrealism today, spanning the ridiculous through an interim to the sublime. The Ridiculous is a title that could have been won by Charter Day School in Leland, North Carolina, where the administration had ruled that girls at the school, which serves kindergarten through 8th grade, could wear only skirts, jumpers, or skirts. You know that it's a skirt with shorts underneath, as part of their uniforms. That's all they could wear, with an exception for phys ed classes, thank you very much. Students circulated a petition protesting this, and they gathered over 100 signatures, but their petition was confiscated. Baker Mitchell, founder of the Roger Bacon Academy, which runs the Charter Day School, told the Washington Post that the dress code meant to, quote, preserve chivalry and respect among young women and men, close quote. He cited such concerns as teen pregnancies and casual sex, and said he wanted to create a learning environment that embodied traditional values. But one of the parents, Bonnie Peltier, was not satisfied with this reply, and she contacted the ACLU, which helped her daughter and 2 other plaintiffs file a federal lawsuit way back in March of 2016. According to the complaint, the skirt requirement forced girls to, quote, pay constant attention to the positioning of their legs during class, distracting them from learning, and leading them to avoid certain activities altogether, such as climbing or playing sports during recess, all for fear of exposing their undergarments and being reprimanded by teachers and teased by boys. The school, of course, defended its policy, claiming its right to, quote, instill discipline and keep order, close quote. Because, as we all know, anarchy and chaos is loosed upon the earth when a female wears pants. Anyway, the story has a happy ending because, finally, given the law's delay, 2 weeks ago, a federal judge ruled that the school's policy toward girls' clothing violated the Equal Protection Clause because girls were being treated differently than boys, and thus it was unconstitutional. Take that, Mr. Mitchell. Maybe you should move to Scotland, where traditionally inclined men wear kilts. Then you could get really upset. That's ridiculously surreal. Well, the item in between ridiculous surrealism and sublime surrealism is this next one. We might call it, Sisters, What Were You Thinking? Lucy Scarafia, the founder of the Vatican magazine Women's Church World, has resigned, altogether with her all-female editorial board, 10 members, in protest at the, quote, direct control of men. She said, we are throwing in the towel because we feel surrounded by a climate of distrust and delegitimization. She wrote that in a letter to the Pope. She went on to say, it seems to us that a vital initiative is reduced to silence and that we return to the antiquated and arid practice of top-down selection under direct male control, as if women are deemed untrustworthy. Close quote. That's what she wrote him. Scarafini suggested that the pressure had increased after a February article in the newspaper about the sexual abuse of nuns by priests, reporting which prompted Pope Francis to publicly acknowledge the issue for the first time. Quote, we could no longer be silent. The trust that so many women had placed in us would have been seriously injured. That's what Scarafia wrote in an article that she published in the mainstream media. She also accused Andrea Monda, the new and the first woman editorial director of L'Osservatore, the official major Vatican newspaper. She accused Monda of weakening Women's Church World, her magazine, and of launching initiatives with other women contributors and pitting women against each other. The magazine was founded in 2012 as an insert of L'Osservatore, but evolved into a standalone publication alongside the daily paper, featuring a 10-woman, as I said, editorial board. L'Osservatore had never covered the scandal of the nuns raped by priests, so it was Women's Church World that broke the story, which then made headlines across the world. We noted Andrea Monda's being appointed the head of L'Osservatore here, and I remember thinking it's a mixed blessing that a woman has been appointed for the first time editorial director of this newspaper. On the other hand, it seems she's been put in that familiar, untenable role of being the face for the old guard old boys, so as to try and appease and co-opt and crush genuine insurgent feminist voices. Then again, I have to ask all of them, when you are working for, with, in, and under the Vatican, girls, how is it possible to be surprised that you find yourself under, quote, direct male control? Absurd question, rhetorically surreal. And at last the sublime, the surreal. As you may have heard, humanity has looked into the heart of a black hole. a cosmic abyss so dense and deep even light can't escape it. And humanity has seen what scientists have always thought unseeable. Astronomers have now reached across intergalactic space to a giant galaxy, Messier 87, which is some 55 million light-years from Earth in the constellation Virgo. There, a black hole several billion times more massive than our sun is unleashing a violent jet of energy some 5,000 light-years out into space. The results were announced simultaneously that we had actually seen into a black hole. There were news conferences in Washington, D.C., and 5 other sites around the world, since this was an international collaboration involving 200 members, 9 telescopes, and 6 papers written for the astrophysical journal Letters. The image emerged from 2 years of computer analysis of observations from a network of radio antennas collaboratively called the Event Horizon Telescope. In all, 8 radio observatories on 6 mountains in 4 continents. The Event Horizon is the name of the edge of a black hole, the point of no return. Although there are theories ranging from superstitious to serious about what, if anything, lies beyond that edge, all we actually know is that according to the math, the density approaches infinity. But infinity now has a face. It's a ring of light with a gravitational pull at the center so great that nothing can escape it. That, my friends, is sublimely surreal. It's time for another short break, and then we'll be back with the conversation. And this week it's with a woman who, first the boys were going to award for being so courageous. And then they got scared of her. She was still courageous. That's coming right up. The Women's Media Center, founded in 2005 by Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem, and myself, is a progressive, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to make women visible and powerful in media. You can learn more about the WMC at womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And we're back again. Today, for the conversation, my guest is a young Finnish investigative journalist who works with the public broadcasting network in Finland. Her name is Jessikka Aro, and she has faced down death threats and harassment over her work in exposing Russia's propaganda machine and troll factories, and she's also faced down Mike Pompeo. Here, with pride, we welcome Jessikka Aro. Jessikka, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. It's such a big honor.
Well, it's an honor to have you here because you have really been up against it, against the trolls who have too lighthearted a name. I think we should call them something more menacing, and Trump. It's a wonderful story about a courageous woman journalist. Go for it.
Thank you so much. Well, as you said, it is really quite a story, and it's still ongoing on a daily basis. But let me go through where it all started.
Mm-hmm.
Already years ago, in 2014, I found out that not so far from Finland, where I live, in St. Petersburg in Russia, there is so-called troll factory. So in this troll factory, there are people pretending as opinionated real citizens, but who in fact get paid to produce social media propaganda commenting behind anonymous and fake profiles. And as I found out about this, I wanted to know, does this programming digital disinformation also impact and influence real people's ideas or attitudes or even behavior?
Mm-hmm.
Because I saw it's some kind of, threat to freedom of speech and threat to people's right to receive factual information. So I started a crowdsourced investigation. I asked people to help me investigate these trolls, in which platforms are the trolls active,
Right.
how do they operate, and how have people reacted. As soon as I published this first piece, I became target of really nasty, horrible fake news.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. So approximately 10 different Russian fake news sites, I was smeared as not being a journalist at all. Instead, they claimed that I am some kind of famous assistant of NATO and American and Baltic Special Services. So, this very old school Soviet Union propaganda trick.
Yeah.
But the problem was that people actually believed in it.
Yeah.
So I found out the very personal way why this digital disinformation is not just,
yes,
threat to freedom of speech.
It spans all the way from completely messing with our elections, basically stealing our election, to to individual cases where lives have been destroyed. It's devastating. Go on.
Exactly, yeah. And so people who had read these fake news stories about me, they started calling me. They started sending messages to me, and they believed, they swallowed the bait of the Russian propagandists claiming that I'm not a journalist, that I'm some kind of criminal instead. And they started to bombard me with hateful messages. And I realized this is why we are facing a security threat. Yes. Digital disinformation is a security threat because it is used to agitate and mobilize people into hateful actions, not against just some individual journalists like myself, but also against nation states. Digital disinformation is being used to dehumanize and smear, for example, at that time, Ukraine as a country. Russia was spreading the idea that Ukraine is a Nazi and fascist country that needs to be liberated. And thus they justified the warfare against it. So, but I continued my investigations and I made a series of articles. We also went to the troll factory and we found out that they were already February 2015 producing English language fake news. And we specifically found out they were political fake news, as we pretended to look for a job at the troll factory and the recruiter told it herself. And so already back then, 2015, this was almost 2 years before your presidential elections in the U.S., but they were already active.
They were preparing.
Yeah.
You were working.
They were producing.
You were working at this point for Finland's public service broadcaster, YLE, Yle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go on.
Yeah. So we continued, and also, by the way, we found out at the troll factory that it was actually Russian state building and state structure. At that time there were only rumors. Because they claimed that they are internet research agency, some company, specializing in, moderating internet content or whatever. But who it was who really gave them away and outed them as Russian state security building?
Who?
It was amazing. Their own security guard. Because as we were filming and taking photos outside of the factory, we were there for 3 days making investigations. The security guard came out and he started yelling that we have to move and get away from the place, because he said that this is a regime zdani. So that means an administrative building. And in Russia,
it's like government property. Oh my God, how interesting.
So he gave it away. And of course we have that on film. Confession.
Well, he's been disappeared, I'm sure. He's off in the gulag somewhere.
Yeah, I'm really sorry for him. But then we made stories in English, and I also then later on published my investigations about the influence. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting, the influence part. The trolls had already back then, the Russian trolls had impacted the Finnish actual real citizens. They had, for example, made people to believe into lies about what happened, for example, in Ukraine, because they were spreading so crazy conspiracy theories about Ukraine and who was behind the Ukrainian war.
Right.
They also had silenced people because they were threatening people, just, ordinary people who were commenting stuff on Twitter. They were harassing and threatening to kill them and calling them Russophobes, CIA, all that. And they had even turned actual people into propagandists. So already, at that time, they had international impact. And I also tried to warn you guys. In 2016, I wrote another piece in English in which I defined the trolls as national security threats, as I had also seen, some hints and evidence that they were already, all over your elections. So, but then in 2017.
Well, this was incredibly courageous, gutsy work, because they've doxed people, they've released their private addresses. People have had to change homes. People have had their children harassed at schools. People have been beaten up. So you were decidedly in the thick of the information warfare. It's interesting. It's Cold War techniques with 21st century technology.
Exactly, precisely.
Oh God,
precisely.
So then go on. So then, at a certain point, the European Union got involved, and then the Foreign Policy magazine informed you that the State Department had told them, this was, I guess, this year, that you would be winning the 2019 International Women of Courage Award, right?
Yeah, what happened was that the U.S. Embassy in Helsinki, they had informed me this late January, that I was to receive and I was awarded this International Women of Courage Award, which is given by the State Department to 10 international women who they see as, making positive impact in their communities and often paid heavy price.
Yes.
Personal price.
Certainly you deserved it. I mean, our State Department did something right for a change. But then...
Yeah. And so many top diplomats had already, accepted the award to me. And,
Yes.
And then I was, handling the logistics with the embassy. And I was supposed to come to DC and then to Chicago and to Los Angeles as part of this award program to, discuss about trolls and journalism and safety of journalism. But then I was notified 8 days before I was about to go to the States from Finland that I would not, receive the award.
My God.
And then, like you said, I read from Foreign Policy that anonymous sources within the State Department told that it was because of my tweet to Trump. And I had tweeted to him, basic, normal, everyday freedom of speech criticism after he had been on various occasions attacking the press, attacking the media, yelling to his over 55 million followers that how rigged and corrupt media is the enemy of the people. I mean, you have to answer to that kind of tweets. You have to, criticize such activity.
Yes,
it's dangerous.
Yes, it's extreme. Precisely what the National Socialist Nazis did. It's what every authoritarian government, it's what Stalin did, is to declare the press the enemy of the people. So whenever somebody's declaring you the enemy of the people, you know that the person who is the enemy of the people is the one doing the declaring, doing the speaking, you know. So, but they never told you this formally? You learned this indirectly through Foreign Policy magazine?
Yeah, I didn't receive any official or documented paper about the reason of my award and program being cancelled. So we immediately, with my lawyer, we made a plea for information. We asked, who did this decision and why was it not documented. And it was quite evident that there was something really shady going on because all of these previous emails and previous documents were, proper and professional and real and genuine. But then someone would just show up and tell that, it's not going to happen. So
they never gave any reason. They never said, oops, we spelled her name wrong or something like, I don't know, some idiotic excuse. They never even managed that.
Actually, the funny thing was after Foreign Policy published its article, which luckily spread really far and, what was really widely shared.
Sure.
The State Department spokesperson, Robert Palladino, he provided a press brief in Washington, D.C. And in that public situation, in which many journalists were asking about this Foreign Policy article and why the award was rescinded, Palladino told them, for some reason, that it was an error and I was never awarded in the first place. So he gave wrong information to worldwide media about it. And it was so wrong because I knew it myself, all these officials knew it, the diplomats knew it. It was all over documented so well that I was supposed to be one of the 10.
It's part of this imaginary, if I just say it, it must be true, method of the Trump regime. It's very Orwellian. It's like George Orwell's books, war is peace, freedom is slavery, truth is untrue, vice versa. And if we say she never got it, we all just hallucinated you, Jessikka. You don't really exist.
Yeah.
You're a hallucination.
Yeah, it's so horrible. I cannot describe how I felt because I watched him tell this disinformation from my own broadcaster's morning news.
Oh my!
And I was like, "Excuse me."
Yes.
But then the senators, 8 Democratic senators, they started their own investigations from the Foreign Relations Senate Committee, which oversights.
The Senate Foreign Relations Committee has oversight of the State Department, and they have begun an investigation into the Office of the Inspector General at the Department of State. So you are not forgotten. I mean, you are. There's a million things to investigate that Trump has been doing, but you are decidedly one of them, and we won't let this go either. We will continue to pressure about it because it's you and your individual integrity that's at stake, and that deserves defending. But it also is the press and the truth. I mean, just fact, fact versus fiction. And there's a legal, there's in October of last year, back in Finland, in the Helsinki District Court, they found that 3 people, Ilya Janitskin, Johan Beckman, and another woman, they were found guilty of sustained defamation against you. That the court said the men had committed an exceptionally aggravated set of crimes. This is online. They were harassing you. And Janitskin, the founder of a particular, I guess, criminal website, was sentenced to 22 months in jail for 16 criminal counts, and Beckman received a year's suspended jail sentence for aggravated defamation and stalking, and they had to pay damages to Aro and other plaintiffs in the case. And the New York Times itself, called this, quote, the first time that a European country had taken action against pro-Russian disinformation spread through social media, websites, and news outlets controlled by or linked to Russia. And of course, Beckman described his conviction apparently as another dirty trick by NATO. When in doubt, blame NATO.
Yeah.
But that's some justice. And the committee here in the United States will continue investigating it. Meanwhile, they made more publicity for you and your courageous journalism than they ever intended to. That's the irony, isn't it?
Yeah, in a way, it is like that. But also, these disinformation has so horrible, results. For example, now after the award was rescinded and disinformation about it was spread internationally, the Troll Factory, which I investigated, their own fake news department, Riafan, they made fake news immediately and mocking a piece about me. And they said that some pro-Putin propagandist journalists also are thinking of giving me a consolation prize.
Nice. And
they also mocked USA in the same article. So it's really, nasty what kind of repercussions such activities can have. So it's, I really would have not wanted to see the U.S., State Department going low.
The personal damage is terrifying because as you say, the repercussions, even if they don't do any act themselves, all sorts of people are influenced by them. And decide that they'll take off and avenge Russia or avenge whatever they are avenging. And one is very vulnerable. I mean, there's the Institute to Protect Journalism. Journalists has had, more incidents of violence against journalists and more deaths, more murders than ever before these past years. It's been steadily increasing. You can't call the press the enemy of the people and have some people not believe it. They believe it.
Exactly.
Well,
it's dangerous. It's so dangerous. And, it's horrible to notice that in so many Western countries, in Finland, in USA, how quickly the safety of the journalists has decreased heavily because of this kind of hate agitation, by not just Russian trolls and pro-Kremlin and pro-neo-Nazi fake news sites, but also high-profile politicians.
That's right. Well, and also, then there's a triple or quadruple, however many we're up to, quadruple effect, which is that women in general on the internet, any woman who speaks out, she's not even a journalist, she's just an outspoken person, immediately there is a male backlash against her, and it's vituperous. But when she's a journalist, as we know from many documented cases, many of them have been on this program, the viciousness is exacerbated to the 20th power. So you're getting it from all sides. Well, we're with you for whatever that's worth. The global women's movement and journalists all over the world. And if I can be of any help in any way, you know where to find me. We're going to stay on the Senate committee until they've done their job, and we know that they're doing their job will make the State Department very uncomfortable.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That is so encouraging.
As far as I am concerned, just as an individual and a member of the press and a writer, you are the 2019 International Woman of Courage, and you were the 2018 and 2017, all the way back to 2014. When you started this.
I feel like a winner. Thank you so much.
You are definitely a winner. Take care of yourself. Stay safe and keep writing. And thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
And now for a final break. But we'll be right back with a sort of fighting words.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, it's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Talk radio with a brain.
And we're back with some fighting words. I've been equivocating about calling this section Fighting Words during April because you may remember that I said, since April is Poetry Month, that I was going to use this segment of the program to read poems about the making of art, specifically about the making of poetry. So I'm not absolutely certain that that qualifies as fighting words, although it isn't always easy to make poetry, and sometimes one has to fight to do it. So I guess it qualifies. Anyway, here are two poems, older poems, both from the book Depth Perception, New Poems and a Mask, which I wrote in the 80s. This one is called Piecing, and it was dedicated to Lois Sasson. And it has an epigraph reading, "Sometimes you don't have no control over the way things are. Hail ruins the crops or fire burns you out, and then you're just given so much to work with in a life and you have to do the best you can with what you got. That's what piecing is. The materials is passed on to you or is all you can afford, but the way you put them together is your business. You can put them in any order you like. Piecing is orderly." That's a quote from an anonymous woman who was quoted in the Quilters, Women and Domestic Art. It's a brilliant quote. And the poem, Piecing. Frugality is not the point, nor waste. It's just that very little is discarded in any honest spending of the self, and what remains is used and used again, worn thin by use, softened to the pliancy and the translucence of old linen, patched, mended, reinforced, and saved. So I discover how I am rejoicing slowly into a woman who grows older, daring to write the same poem over and over, not merely rearranged, revised, reworded, but one poem hundreds of times anew. The gaudy anniversaries, the strips of colorless days gone unexamined, this piece of watered silk almost as shot with light as a glance he gave me once, this sturdy canvas shred of humor, that fragment of pearl velvet, a particular snowstorm, assorted samples of anger, in oilcloth, in taffeta, in tufted chenille, and every imaginable synthetic and ready-to-wear. This diamond of tie-dyed flannel baby blanket. That other texture of deception, its dimensional embroidery. A segment of bleached muslin still crisp with indifference. This torn veil of chiffon, pewter as the rain we wept through one entire July. These brightly printed squares across which different familiar figures walk through parks or juggle intricate abstract designs. Two butterflies of yellow organdy my mother cut when I was 8 months old. A mango grosgrain ribbon fading off toward peach. The corner of an old batik showing one small window that looked out on what? A series of simple cotton triangles in primary colors, and this octagonal oddment, a sunburst or mandala or pinwheel, radiating rainbow stripes against what turns out, upon close inspection, to be a densely flowered background. It's striking enough to be a centerpiece. Once I thought this work could be less solitary. Many of us, I imagined, would range ourselves along the edges of some pattern we would all agree on well beforehand, talking quietly while we worked, each with her unique stitch inward to the same shared center. This can still be done, of course, but some designs emerge before they can be planned, much less agreed on, demand an entire life's work and are best viewed upon completion. And then so many designers bore too easily to work the same theme over and over, with only the slightest gradual adjustments, like subtly changing your thread from brown to gray. Still, the doorbell does toll in visitors, some of whom slash rents across the section just perfected, all without meaning to, and some of whom admire the audacity or quality of scraps, but rarely notice the order, which is the one thing you control. But some contribute, a quarter yard of paisley or a length of gauze, fine enough for bandages. Once somebody left behind an entire pocket of gold lame all by itself. The challenge is to use it so that the tarnished griefs she stuffed it with to lend it shape need be no longer hidden. Throwing such a piece away is not the answer, nor has hoarding anything to do with this. And nobody really hazards piecework in the expectation that someday all these fragments might inevitably fit into a gentle billow of warmth to comfort the longest winter sleep. Not even that. It's just the pleasure of rescuing some particle into meaning for a while. Of course, this means that you yourself are placed where you risk being worn all the more severely into translucent linen, held up toward the light. And this poem is from the same book, and it's called 3 Definitions of Poetry. 1. 2,000 years ago, the Chinese princess Tu Wan designed herself a burial suit which would preserve her body for all time. This armor, a mosaic of jade fragments tied with pure gold thread, is still intact. Untarnished, the moss-blue veins still subtle in contrast to the bright metallic arteries. Within the shape of her own mold, Tu Wan is safe as dust. 2. Birth is the mortal wound, life the infection entering in. Love is the fever, truth the chill. Age forms the scab, dying alone rips free. Some pick at it every day, while others try to soften it by soaking in salt water. And some do wrench it off with one swift motion. Art lies in the X-ray, as you might have guessed. The whole story in negative, the diagnosis, treatment, relapses, and remissions. Unless this record is misfiled or overexposed. 3. Outside it's raining catatonics and dogmatics. Inside the room, inside the cover of the cage itself, inside the head, under the hunched wing, the eyes of the poem tick, unblinking, in sockets of oil. When the cage cover is removed, everyone marvels at such spontaneity of song. Those are my fighting words. Add yours on Twitter and remember to tag us at WMC Live and use the hashtag Fighting Words. That's our show for today. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheRobinMorgan and on Facebook at facebook.com/TheRobinMorgan. Check out my blog at robinmorgan.net and find my latest book, Dark Matter, wherever books are sold. Opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the Women's Media Center. Here's the family for our show. Executive producer as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer of this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us again next time on Women's Media Center Live.